After Disney's groundbreaking Renaissance era from 1989 to 99, which included masterpieces such as The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, and many, many more, Disney Animation went through a bit of a slump. It wasn't all bad, as Disney produced some really great films like Lilo and Stitch and Emperor's New Groove, but the shift from 2D to 3D computer animation was not doing great things for Disney, while studios like Pixar and Dreamworks flourished and created some of their own masterpieces. It was clear that Disney was no longer the top dog in animation, and they needed something to change. They needed a revival. This revival started with Princess and the Frog being released in 2009 and ended with Ralph Breaks the Internet in 2018. This revival definitely helped Disney build up its reputation once again in terms of profit, but was it good in terms of film quality? We will find out as we take a look at every Disney revival film ranked from worst to best. This list is just my personal opinion, so if you disagree, tell me about it in the comments. Now, on to the list. Ralph Breaks the Internet is not very good. It's a film full of product placement, bad jokes, and the mishandling of characters. It was released only 2 years ago, and it already feels like it has aged a lot. The premise of the film actually isn't terrible, and I can see why Vanellope would want more out of life. It's a solid setup, but it was handled very poorly. Ralph is a terrible person in this film. I know he gets called out for it, but still, I feel like the things he does are things he never would have done in the first movie. He is a huge part in the reason Sugar Rush gets unplugged, and he doesn't feel bad at all. He is happy that his best friend's game got shut down because now they can hang out all day. But doesn't Ralph still have to work in his own game? Apparently not, because Felix can cover for him, even though that nearly got the game unplugged in the last movie. I love continuity. The idea of going turbo was such an integral piece in the first movie, but in this one, when Ralph and Vanellope leave for the internet, it's never brought up. I get that Vanellope's game can function without her, but Ralph's literally cannot. Also, did you know that you can make $30,000 for viral videos in just 24 hours? According to this movie, you can because going viral is so easy that anyone can do it. Great message, Disney. However, despite all of my complaints, the real message of the film is actually pretty good. The idea that you have to let your friends go is a powerful one, except this movie forgets about that until the final act because it was too busy piling on stupid things. Still, I actually really like the scene where Vanellope throws Ralph's necklace. And I really like the Disney princess stuff, especially when they use all their powers to save Ralph in the end. I liked Vanellope's song. I thought the virus was animated in a genuinely scary way. If this film put its good qualities as the forefront instead of shoving down pop culture references and bad jokes, maybe I would have liked it a bit more. Unfortunately, it doesn't, and Ralph Breaks the Internet is a clear example of Disney trying to sell things instead of telling a good story. This film is the only one on the list that I would call terrible, so at least it gets better from here on out. If the entirety of Big Hero 6 was like the first 20 minutes, this film would definitely be higher up on the list. Up until Tadashi's death, this film gave me serious Good Will Hunting vibes, which is one of my favorite films, so naturally, I was into it. We have a boy with a troubled past, but is also a genius with tons of potential and needs help to use it the right way, with two adults debating over the boy's fate. I also really liked Hero's relationship with Tadashi. Then they killed him and it becomes a superhero movie. The superhero stuff felt really generic. Even all of the side characters, despite showing that they're all really smart in their first scene, never use their smarts again because Hero, who is 14, is the only one who does all the science stuff. I'm surprised none of them ever question him, despite also being smart and being older. But after they all team up, they seem to lose some of the smarts because Hero needs to be the smart one. One thing I liked about the superhero stuff, however, is Baymax. He is easily the best character in the movie, providing great comedy and some heartfelt scenes. However, the twist villain sucks. I know Clay was too predictable, so they picked Callahan, but then they completely ruin his character in the process. He goes from a kind professor to a homicidal maniac just for the sake of our heroes needing a bad guy to fight. He should only want to kill Clay, but instead he is fine with killing all of his students out of nowhere. However, I do like the theme of grief and how different people deal with grief. The contrast between Hero and Callahan is clear and made the story more compelling. I would have just not had the superhero plot altogether and stuck with the boy genius robotic stuff, but if they really wanted to do a superhero movie, then they definitely could have set it up better, instead of tempting me due to my love for Good Will Hunting. With that said, I still really enjoyed the setting and the first act, and I loved Baymax, but the superhero stuff felt generic despite the animation and themes that were there, so I don't think I can put this film any higher on the list. Frozen is a film of really high highs and really low lows. I had a lot of trouble trying to decide between this and Big Hero 6, but I ended up choosing Frozen because although there are some writing problems that I will get into, it tells one coherent story which I prefer over the shift in subject in Big Hero 6. The songs are hit or miss for me. Love is an Open Door is good, I like First Time and Forever, and the reprise is short but really strong. But then we have Summer and the Rock Trolls song. Let It Go is great musically, even though it sort of symbolizes Elsa's character inconsistencies. Let me explain by bringing up another Disney animated film, The Lion King. Hakuna Matata is a fun, catchy song where the message is to put your problems behind you and avoid responsibility. Elsa's song is more about her newfound freedom and putting her past behind her, but you can still see the similarities. The big difference, though, is that Simba eventually realizes he's wrong and chooses to go back. Elsa never gets to choose because she's forced back into the climax in chains. She never has that moment where she realizes abandoning her kingdom and loved ones for isolation is a bad idea. She's only there in the climax because it's where the plot needs her to be, so she learns nothing, and instead of being a proactive protagonist, she's a reactive one. And it sucks because she had potential for a really good arc, but writing changes, along with other things, mess that up. Also, the rock trolls suck. They're like the gargoyles in Hunchback of Notre Dame, annoying tone killers with the worst song in the movie. Also, Han sucks as a villain. But now, on to the good stuff. The animation is really good. I enjoyed the trio of Anna, Kristoff, and Olaf. I really liked their interactions and liked how they fleshed out Anna's personality. She's a much better character than Elsa in my opinion, with a distinct personality and a good character arc. Overall, the ups and downs of this movie made it pretty hard to rank. It's too good to be called bad, but too bad to be called great. I really feel like if Elsa was written better, and maybe given more time to develop, this movie would be higher up on the list. Winnie the Pooh is a weird one to rank. On one hand, it's Winnie the Pooh. How can you hate on Winnie the Pooh? The movie doesn't make any huge changes and just gives a light-hearted Winnie the Pooh story with the usual cast of characters, the usual animation style, and the usual humor. I liked some of the jokes, I liked the characters, and I really liked when the characters just walked out of the scene. There isn't anything that's necessarily bad about this movie, because it's lighthearted and inoffensive, but with a runtime that's barely over an hour, this movie really doesn't have a lot to say. I'm not saying that I went into it expecting some storytelling masterpiece with powerful themes and compelling character arcs, but I feel like I can't put it over good movies who at least attempted those things. Despite that, this film doesn't need to be deep to be good. It's Winnie the Pooh. I actually like that this movie wasn't too ambitious with its story. They just gave us the classic characters and an inoffensive story, and that's okay. The film that started the revival, Princess and the Frog, directed by the duo of Ron Clements and John Musker, and set at the vibrant city of New Orleans with a jazz music score, Princess and the Frog starts off looking really promising until Tiana is turned to a frog. Now, the frog stuff isn't bad by any means, but when I rewatched this movie, I was so into the first act. I love the music, almost their slaps, I love Tiana's hard-working, no-nonsense personality, and I like how they introduced the villain. Friends on the Other Side was a great villain song with a bombastic ending. Everything was setting up to be great, and I feel like when Tiana was turned to a frog, the film kinda loses its momentum, like Big Hero 6, except there isn't a complete shift in story, so it's a lot easier to enjoy. I like Tiana and Naveen for the most part, but they're no Belle and the Beast. Still, some of their scenes are cute even though their real first bonding scene is because Louis gets prickers in his bum. Most of the humor comes from slapstick, which most of the time is more annoying than funny for me. The swamp stuff isn't all bad though. I liked when Naveen tells Tiana she has a gift, and you can see in her expression that she thinks of her father. I like how Naveen holds off his proposal because he doesn't want to compromise Tiana's dream. It's a really mature act for a character who's acted childish for most of the film, really displaying his development. I thought the climax was a little weird though. Tiana stops Naveen from kissing Charlotte. But why? He can still be in her dream if he does, and he ends up kissing her anyways. It just felt like a way to waste time for me. Regardless, I still liked the ending. I really liked Dr. Facilia's death and thought he was a pretty cool villain. Princess and the Frog could definitely be higher on the list if they focused more on Tiana as a human instead of having her be a frog for the majority of the movie, and it could have kept the momentum of the first act going. Still, I enjoyed this film. The characters are good, I love the 2D animation, it's just that in my mind the story could be a bit better, but don't let that stop you from checking this one out. Zootopia is pretty good. I really like the dynamic between Nick and Judy. I think their personalities play off each other really well and they make a fun buddy cop duo. I also enjoy both of their backstories, particularly Nick's. It really helps to give his character more depth and add some real maturity. Speaking of maturity, for the most part, I thought the themes of the movie were handled really well. There are some really powerful moments and lines, such as Judy reaching for the fox repellent, the mother pulling her kid closer, and the "there's a them now" line. I thought the prejudice themes were handled really well for a kids' film. Another thing I liked was the world building. I love the vibrant atmosphere of Zootopia, and I like how we get to see more of the world through the chase scene and the jungle scene. However, I thought the overall story could have been better to go along with the powerful themes that the film set up. While there were some great scenes like the chase scene mentioned earlier, Gideon's apology, Judy and Nick's falling out and then their reconciliation, some scenes were pretty weird and I really didn't like the twist villain. That's sort of a theme on this list. I don't like the twist villains. Still, I think Zootopia is pretty good with fun, interesting characters and powerful themes to justify its placement on the list. Tangled is a lot better than I remembered it being when I was younger. It starts off good, then keeps getting better towards the ending. I thought Rapunzel was a really good main character. She's curious, artistic, clever, optimistic, and resilient. She pursues her dream in a way that's really different from other Disney princesses. Ariel wants to be a human. Tiana wants to own a restaurant. Belle wants more than her provincial life. Rapunzel just wants to go outside and see some lights. I enjoyed When Will My Life Begin, as it shows what it's like for her to be alone in her tower all day for 18 years, and I loved the reprise, when her feet finally touch the grass and she can finally experience the outside world. I also liked Flynn Rider, or Eugene. I think he has great chemistry with Rapunzel, and I really like the arc he goes through in this film. I like how he eventually drops his whole facade and doesn't pretend to be Flynn Rider. He tells her his real name. I love how initially he goes from a thief with superficial dreams to becoming a genuinely caring character. That "you are my dream" line is just amazing. Also, Gothel isn't a great villain, but she's solid. I really like the reprise from Mother Knows Best, and I like how her plan to bring Rapunzel back makes her seem like the good guy, when in reality she was the one pulling the strings the entire time. This film was looking like it was going to be a few spots lower on the list, but pretty much everything from when they make it to the kingdom up until the ending is near perfect. I love the montage in the kingdom. I See the Light is an absolute banger and it's one of the best, most beautiful Disney songs ever. I love the visuals, and when they finally sing together, it's just perfect. I thought the prison escape was good, and I loved the climax. This film has a good story, good music, good characters, and rivals the princess movies of the Renaissance. Tangled deserves its high ranking on this list. Unlike Tangled, I remembered WreckIt Ralph being pretty good from when I was younger, and it was still better than I thought it would be. I love the video game setting, and being someone who enjoys video games, I loved seeing all of these characters and worlds on screen. It can help create some good comedy and some great world building. I love the design of the whole arcade. The central station where characters can travel through games is a really creative idea. This movie is full of life and creativity, which is evident in each game's environment and the interactions between characters. I think it's cool that all the bad guys meet up to discuss their feelings. I like the whole explanation of what it means to go turbo, and I love how it's brought back in the end. I loved Ralph's motivations in this film, and his arc was one of my favorite parts. It's really relatable for a bad guy to want recognition, and I like how it's similar to how Vanellope lives in Sugar Rush. Their bond was another great thing about the film. Vanellope was kind of annoying at first, but the more I got to know her, the more I enjoyed her character, which is exactly how Ralph felt. I liked the montage of Vanellope learning how to drive, and then got sad at the very powerful scene where Ralph destroys the car, and if you look closely, you can see that Ralph and Vanellope's names are broken apart, symbolizing their friendship, which is fixed later on. I also love Turbo's reveal, and I think he's one of Disney's only twist villains who actually works, because it wasn't as much of a twist, but more of a reveal. King Candy was already serving as an antagonist, so revealing him as Turbo only added to the tension, instead of completely throwing off the viewer with an unnecessary swerve. So, I like the twist villain, I love the two main characters in each of their arcs, and I love the creativity of the setting. So, other than a lot of poop jokes, what's keeping this movie from number one? Well, Moana is not only the best film of the revival era, in my opinion it is one of the best Disney films ever. It's not Lion King and it's not Beauty and the Beast. It has some moments where it can be a bit too silly and its hero's journey story may not be the most original, but I could care less. The animation, characters, and songs are all great. How Far I'll Go might be one of my favorite Disney I Want songs ever. Maybe even better than Go the Distance from Hercules, which was coincidentally directed by the same people, Ron Clements and John Musker. You can definitely see the similarities between the two films. Both films have a character who leaves their family to go on a journey, where they find someone to help them along the way, etc., etc. Except it's the concept of the journey that makes the films different. Hercules leaves because he wants to become a god, while Moana leaves to save her family and just so happens to also want to leave the island. Speaking of Moana, I really like her. The ocean calls out to her, yet she doesn't come off as a perfect character who can do no wrong. She gets knocked down, she fails, but still she is willing and determined enough to keep trying to restore the heart, and in the end, she does. She's also pretty funny, and I enjoy her interactions with other characters like Maui and her grandma. Maui's another character that I liked. Casting Dwayne Johnson may have just been to draw more eyes to the movie, but he still does a good job. I enjoyed his arc and I like how he plays off of Moana. Also, this might be a reach, but I like how the tattoos can sort of represent the conflict of Maui's inner conscience when it comes to helping Moana. I thought You're Welcome was a catchy song, not as good as How Far I'll Go, but still pretty good. Another catchy song is Shiny. I like how Tamatoa is beating up the heroes while singing about how great he is. He's not in the movie for very long, but when he's on screen, he steals the spotlight in a good way. Also, I really like his design along with the design of the other villains. I really like the twist at the end with Kai and Tafiti, and it made for a good climax. I'd love to make a full video on this film, but for now just take my word that it's great, or go enjoy it for yourself. In my opinion, it deserved to win Best Animated Feature over Zootopia, and it not only rivals films of the Renaissance, but I think it's better than a lot of them. There's a lot of great films on this list, but I'm happy with putting Moana at number 1. It is truly a masterpiece. So, to go back to what I said in the intro, did the film quality justify the insane amount of money made during this era? For the most part, yes. I don't know if it's possible for any era to stack up to Disney's Renaissance, but this revival era certainly does better than most. It's a return to form for Disney, and I believe they were able to take the crown from Pixar as the top animation studio, because at this time Pixar was more focused on sequels. Will they keep the crown? Judging by how this era ended with Ralph Breaks the Internet and their latest film being Frozen 2, it's hard to say. I don't know if the quality will improve, but even if they don't, it won't matter because now Disney owns everything and it is too big to fail. Still, despite the possibility of a downward trend, this era churned out some great films that can stack up to the Renaissance. Tangled and WreckIt Ralph are both great, and Moana might be one of my top 5 Disney films ever. Then again, I'm indecisive and my opinion changes a lot, so maybe I'll change my mind with some things on this list. For now though, this is my list ranking every Disney revival film from worst to best. Hope you all enjoyed it and tell me if you change anything in the comments.